All right, good morning, everybody. Sorry for the slightly later start. I understand it was a little bit of a bear getting into the city this morning, so I appreciate you all coming in to join us. Thank you to our distinguished panelists for joining us as well. My name is Thomas Reed. I'm the director of the Office of Communications Business Opportunities, and I'd like to welcome you all to our Supplier Diversity Conference. Last 2 days I've been at a conference with the Minority Media Telecommunications Council focusing on access to capital. Very wonderful conference. I know some of you were there, and I appreciate your joining us here for a third day. This really is the necessary counterpart, the sibling to access to capital. It's really access to relationships, access to opportunities. And we have an incredibly distinguished cast of experts here to talk to you about their companies, their expertise, the opportunities that are available with them, and how best to position yourself as a small company to partner with them. So I'm really excited about today and having you all here. I'm going to introduce our panelists, but first I would really like to introduce my esteemed co-moderator, who is doing double duty. I mean, how many panels did you moderate last 2 days?
Too many.
That's right. So Dr. Ron Johnson, he's serving Solutions for Change, LLC.com. He's serving his second term as an appointed member of the FCC Committee on Diversity in the Digital Age. We work together a great deal there. He does, Ron, you ought to be drawing a paycheck from the FCC, given how much you do here.
Thank you, Tom.
He has 35 years of corporate ownership and strategic consulting to small and minority-owned IT, telecommunication, engineering, construction companies, and historical black colleges and universities. Just a great man who has lent his expertise to us often, and of course we ask again. So he's gonna say a few words and get us started off. So, Dr. Johnson.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tom. It is certainly a special privilege for me to be asked again to co-moderate this conference or this session, this event with Tom Reed, who is, as all of you know, a well-respected colleague and really an authority on diversity matters. Tom Reed has been with the agency for some time, and I know all of you who've had the opportunity to meet with him and work with him know that he has some wonderful ideas, and he's just a treat to work with. Over the last 5 years, it has been an unusual pleasure to work with Tom, particularly in my role as a member of the FCC Advisory Committee on Diversity in the Digital Age, and particularly as chair of the Industrial Procurement Best Practices Committee, which I chair. I think the very title of the Advisory Committee suggests, and appropriately so, that it is an extremely important part of the FCC's toolbox of the things that the FCC use to reach out to diverse companies like you, and so to the many companies who are not. They're here. In addition to that, the committee interfaces with industry as well. Some of my colleagues are here, and they're represented or have been represented on the Adversity Committee in past years, and so it's always good to have them to participate as well. First of all, let me applaud Chairman Wheeler's commitment to continuing the work of the Advisory Committee. I think he's going to do this office in a way that he feels is in the best interest of the FCC and the American people. And I look forward, as well as the other members of the Advisory Committee, to working with him, the other commissioners, Tom and his staff, and other staff members of the FCC. When I began to assist Tom and Calvin Osborne with structuring this event today, I conveyed to them some of the procurement challenges that companies like you all face every day, and mine. And the good news is that they listen, they want to hear about these ideas, and I'm gratified to tell you that this event today is a culmination and reflects their interests in meeting and addressing some of the issues that I know you have. And so right now I think we should just stop and applaud Tom and the FCC for having this event today. I want to thank all of you again for participating in this event this morning and in the afternoon, and I'm particularly happy that not only our small businesses are here, women-owned businesses and other diverse companies are here, but also universities and colleges. Virginia State University is here in the presence of their provost and one of our professors down there. Took the time to be with us, which suggests to me that universities are getting engaged. And we are pleased that HBCUs see the importance of being involved in the work of the FCC. So we want to thank them for coming as well. It is important for you to know that you do have voices in this agency, and they resonate throughout this building with conviction and undoubtedly with a tremendous passion for issues of diversity. They understand the complex issues that we face. And as you create and grow your many wonderful enterprises, and as small, diverse business owners, I and they are very aware of the problems that you face every day in the marketplace and how challenging these things are. And that's why I was asked to work with Tom and Kevin on this event. We all know that access to capital is a major barrier. We've just completed the MMTC conference on yesterday, and for the last 2 days we have addressed these issues, and many of you, as I look out in the audience, were there, and we want to thank you for your presence. And if you were not there, you missed a great opportunity to engage in some very serious discussions around raising capital, where the capital is, how you can access it. We heard some great success stories about access to capital, and we want to thank the FCC people for participating as well. You might want to know that we had 5 commissioners at the MMTC conference a couple of days ago, and they stayed and they participated, and they did a great job. And also Tom was there, and his staff was present also. So I think we should give the FCC a round of applause for their participation yesterday in the MMTC conference. Thank you very much. And so let me just say a word before Tom introduced these panelists here. As is customary in the South, if you're reared in the South, I was talking to a lady in the back who now has an office in Boston, but she was quick to tell me that she's really from the great state of Tennessee. I could tell by that accent she wasn't from Boston. But as we do in the South, whenever you want to make friends with your neighbors and continue relations with your neighbors, and particularly if you want to borrow something from them, you don't just simply go to their house and say, lend me something. You have to position them to want to do it for you. When I grew up in the country in the South, and I wanted to borrow a tobacco planter from my neighbor, I know you don't know what a tobacco planter is, but it's something that you use to plant tobacco. You know, we don't use those anymore. But you would go to your neighbor's house and you would first say, hello, how you doing? Did the cow have the calf yet? How's your family? Have you been praying for rain and that kind of thing? And if you approach your neighbor correctly, your neighbor would simply say, you can borrow that thing, but you got to bring it back. And if I'm not here, just simply set it by the shed if I'm not at home. And so today, this is a fireside chat with our neighbors. And we are at a common place, a neutral place, and we're going to treat them as if they are our neighbors, and they're certainly going to treat us the same way. So, as you can well imagine, there are just a few things I want to say, some advice I want to give you as we kind of migrate through today, because I know these things work if you want to be successful as you leave here today. And first of all, it's important that we know what the customers are buying, these folks that are facing you right here. What are their corporate goals? What are their growth strategies? What will create the next great buy so that you can participate in some way? And so the question becomes, where is this information? You're going to get a lot of it here today. But here are some hints where you can find it if you don't already know. SEC filings, corporate news releases, tags, blogs, industry periodicals, FCC filings, FTC filings, internal relationships, and lastly, but probably just as important, the proverbial grapevine. And if you talk a little, and I'm going to stop in a minute, and listen a lot, it certainly will help your business. And I'm convinced today, without fear of contradiction, that each of these companies are committed to hiring the best and the brightest minds to help them grow their businesses, to drive down costs, and to drive up their profits. In reality, they did not become big by being stupid. They're smart. They want you, if you have a product for them, that will help them, and they will use it. And so we have a lot of challenges today. We are going to address them. And so this event today hopefully will be informational for you, but also we're hoping that it will be transformational for you. But it will only be transformational if you make it so. And so with that, welcome again, and we hope that the event today will be fruitful for your businesses. Thank you.
I'm going to take just a minute to go over a couple housekeeping details, and I'm going to introduce our panelists. First thing is that Calvin Osborne here, right over there. Calvin, when you have questions, he's going to be passing out index cards, so you can pass those to him, and those will come up to me, and I ask you to just let me know who you are and try to write legibly. My eyes are bad, so write big. And I'll try to get your questions in as we ask questions up here. We're also going to be taking questions from the net. This event is being streamed live, so some of those questions will be coming in. So those of you who are watching online, please do send your questions in. Christian, where do they send that information to?
To livequestions@fcc.com.
So that's livequestions@fcc.com. .gov, I'm sorry. So they'll be sending those questions in as well. And I guess I'll say this now. We're going to go probably till, about noon or a little bit before. Karen Beverly from my office is here. Many of you have been in touch with her. Those of you who have signed up for afternoon sessions. So after the session, please do check in with her. She has your packets and your schedule for the afternoon. Let her know if you don't want to take all your meetings, because there are tons of people who want meetings, and we might be able to fill those slots. And the sooner we know that, the better. So, and also on the reverse side of that, if there are meetings that you're looking for and you didn't get, check in with Karen, because slots sometimes do open up. So, having said that, let me jump to our panel. Our first panelist is Mr. Eugene Agee. He is the Vice President of Procurement and Real Estate at Sprint. Mr. Agee is responsible for procurement, strategic sourcing, real estate, and environmental health and safety. The organization has approximately 160 associates. In this capacity, he manages $17 billion, with a B, in spending and 20 million square feet of commercial, retail, and technical space. In addition, he manages Sprint's supplier diversity initiatives, and he's been there for 24 years. Is that correct? 25 in October. Mr. Agee, I'm going to ask everybody if you got a minute or two of comments to open up, and then we'll continue down the line.
So,
Please. Yes.
Just thank you very much, Thomas, for inviting me and Sprint to participate in your diversity conference. I'm excited to be here and share what we're doing and how individuals can do business with Sprint.
Thank you. All right. Next is Mr. I'm going to say Pat. I see the first name. Is it Narciso? Narciso. Okay, I was close. Mr. Pat Patterson, Verizon Manager Supplier Diversity. Mr. Patterson is manager at Verizon and is responsible for advocacy, outreach efforts, and partners with key stakeholders on supplier diversity efforts. Pat has over 5 years of experience in the supplier diversity arena, and over 20 years with Verizon, where he has held key roles in construction management and engineering.
I want to thank you, Tom, and the Commission for inviting us. I'm pleased to be here on the behalf of Verizon. I look forward to sharing some insights and some information with all of you.
Next on our panel, thank you. Next on our panel is Mr. Fernando Hernandez, who is, this is the second time with us, and we thank him again for coming. He's with Microsoft Corporation. He's Director of Supplier Diversity. In this capacity, he drives Microsoft's strategies to achieve supplier diversity objectives. He is responsible for Microsoft's $1.3+ billion annual supplier diversity initiative. He serves on various boards, including the National Minority Supplier Development Council, Women's Business Enterprise National Council, WeBank, Business Consortium Fund, United States Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Procurement Council, and the $1 Billion Roundtable, among others. Mr. Hernandez.
Good morning. And welcome everyone to this panel. We had a great time last time I was here, so I'm hoping the same will be true this time. I'm sure it will be. And I want to thank personally Tom for putting this together, and Calvin for reaching out to me as well. I feel within good company and good energy. I think we're going to have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our panel is Mr. Dale Martinez from AT&T. Is the Director of Global Business and Operations Sourcing. He is, this is the federal division of AT&T. He leads a team that procures products and services for the $8 billion businesses, the $8 billion business unit that is responsible for sales to federal agencies. Dale has 30 years of experience in the telecommunications industry with extensive experience leading procurement teams.
Thank you. I want to thank Frank Thomas and his team for putting this together. It's a great opportunity for AT&T to sit on a panel with our peers and talk about opportunities for diverse business throughout the United States.
Next is Mr. Ajamu Johnson from Comcast. Mr. Johnson is the Senior Director of Supplier Diversity and Strategic Procurement. He joined Comcast in January 2008 and serves as I mentioned, Senior Director of Supplier Diversity and Strategic Procurement. In this role, he is responsible for establishing corporate goals, policy, strategy, and objectives that ensure maximum utilization of diverse businesses in the contracting process. His duties include identifying qualified suppliers, developing existing suppliers, verifying credentials, monitoring progress toward annual diversity participation goals, and providing access to Comcast procurement personnel. Mr. Johnson has been involved in minority business outreach and development for 10 years.
Well, good morning, and thank you for the introduction, and thank you for the invitation. Looking forward to continuing our conversation, I'd say, because like Fernando, we were here a few years ago, so I'm happy that we were able to pull the group back together, and I'm happy to see all the small business owners that have joined us this morning. We are very proud of the efforts that we've been able to achieve at Comcast, but I'm always looking forward to conversations like this and sharing best practices with the other companies that do great work in this space. Thank you very much.
Next on our panel is Mr. David Honig. He's the Chief Executive Officer of the Minority Media Telecom Council, the conference we were just mentioning. Mr. Honig co-founded MMTC in 1986 and has been its CEO since its inception. MMTC has represented over 80 minority, civil rights, and religious national organizations in selected proceedings before the FCC and other agencies, and it operates the nation's only full-service minority-owned media and telecom brokerage, which he'll be talking about a little bit more today.
Dr. Johnson, Calvin, Karen, thank you so much for the privilege of being here.
And last on our panel, Mr. Charles Harrell is the president of the IT Architect Corporation, also known as the Information Technology Architect Corporation. ITA was founded in May 2003 as an innovative technology and communications firm to design, implement, and manage the automation of business processes and building controls for corporations and government agencies. Charles is a member of the FCC's Diversity Advisory Committee. We've worked together a great deal on that committee. And the MBEIC Advisory Board of the Chicago Minority Supplier Development Council as a Government and Diverse Supply Chain Committee member. Mr. Harrell.
Okay. Again, thank you for inviting me for the second time. I look forward to speaking today. And not just that, but I really appreciate having the opportunity to represent the MBE Supplier Committee. Thank you very much.
I'd like to thank you all again for coming. Not just these gentlemen are not just participating on this panel, but them or their colleagues are also lending us their time this afternoon to meet with you all one-on-one, which, this is a wonderful panel, but I know those one-on-one meetings have tremendous value for you and for all of us. So I thank them for their time and their commitment to this. And so we'll get started. And I'm just going to open up. I've got a general question. And that is, and I'll pose this to all of our large ISPs and IT companies on the panel, and that is, let's talk first about just the process that a potential supplier has to navigate to do business with your organization. Maybe we can talk about that, some of the do's and don'ts, and how you look at what your philosophy is on how best to approach your company when trying to do business with it. We can start with you, Mr. AG.
So if you want to do business with Sprint, first you have to get registered as a supplier. So we have an online tool where we will ask you to go out and complete the online application. Completing the online application does not make you a supplier, however. And then if you're a diverse supplier, we would ask you to meet with our supplier diversity team so that they can fully understand the products and services that you are offering. And then based on that, we would do introductions within the company to the people who would be the end users of that good and service. And then once we've done that introduction, if there is currently an opportunity available, we would then go through a process of creating a contractual document with you that would then qualify you as a supplier to do business with Sprint. The process is fairly painful. Obviously, everyone who comes in does not qualify because we may or may not be buying the products or services that you are offering at that time. But generally speaking, we've been very successful in bringing in minority and small business to become and remain suppliers to Sprint.
We'll just go down the line, and actually, as part of that question, and Jane, you touched on it. Are there special programs or special procedures that you have in place for women and minority-owned businesses? Are there programs that you use to sort of highlight that opportunity for them?
There are, but I'm going to allow the others to speak because there are a lot of programs that we have that are just targeted towards small and diverse business.
Okay.
And similar to what Gene had just mentioned, we also have an online registration tool. If you happen to be a diverse supplier, certified diverse supplier, we have a special online source for that. You go to verizon.com/supplier diversity, and that'll just walk you right through all the registration requirements that you need. We also have the procurement process, so at that point, what we will do is look to engage one of the members of our supply diversity team. We're spanned across the country, and we'll make sure that whatever your offerings are line up with the requirements or the needs of our business. At that point, if things do line up well, another introduction will be made to our key buyers internally or our sourcing personnel also. And contract opportunity may be happening at that point. And hopefully and thinking positively, that will happen. And, we look for not just short-term for, quick solutions, but we look for a long-term, long partnership and helping smaller businesses and diverse businesses grow. Thank you.
I think a lot of what my colleague said is consistent with Microsoft. So tactically, it's a lot of what they're saying. It's going to the website. It's following the same protocol, engaging procurement, looking at what the opportunities are, right? But then there's the strategic piece, I think, on your side. And strategically, someone said it before. I think Ronald mentioned it before, where doing the appropriate homework, right? And being able to look at your 10Ks and other different type of public information that gives you a guidance into not what we're doing today, but where the puck is going, right? So in our case, we just acquired Nokia. Well, what does that mean, right? What are the opportunities, not today, but 12 months down the road, 24 months down the road, et cetera? That, I think, is the more strategic vision. And I think for all of the colleagues here, I think you would be well served to see where the roadmap is. And then do you, in fact, align to that roadmap strategically? So that would be the piece that I would probably want to focus on more.
At AT&T, since we're trying to envision our future, we'd like you to first go into our websites and take a look at us and take a look at our strategic direction. I think it's critical that we understand who you're selling to and what we're looking for before you really get started. Like my colleagues, we have a supplier diversity site. It's www.atntsupplierdiversity.com. You can put in your request there and put a notification in that you're interested in doing business with AT&T. We will review your company at that time. We have a team of several people that will go through all sorts of applications, look what's going on, see if there's a fit for your company strategically anywhere in the company. If there's not, we will let you know through email that there isn't currently anything that we're looking for in your area. That takes about 2 to 3 weeks. If there is, we'll be contacting you and reaching out to you and then trying to find out how we can do business with you through various procurement processes. AT&T, being a large, diversified company itself, is always looking for ways to bring people in, but it's not always through the same door.
I would definitely add one thing or a couple things to what previously was stated. Typically, I don't find that the diverse suppliers that are looking to work with us have many issues tactically. People are registering. I think they're reaching out to the supplier diversity team. They're definitely raising a hand and expressing interest. The one thing that I'll find more often than I'd like is that, and some people mentioned it before, the pitch or the value proposition isn't clearly demonstrated or it isn't customized to my organization. The one thing that I will say before you even reach out to an organization is make sure, of course, that you are doing and are the best at whatever it is that you are doing and you're trying to provide. We're looking for our suppliers to be extensions of our internal teams, and they need to be aligned with our culture. They need to be aligned with our path. They need to be aligned with our direction. Clearly, the supplier diversity teams should be able to help you navigate these very complex companies. What are the sales cycles? There are some things that haven't come up for bid since the last time we had one of these sessions. There are other things that come up more frequently. That's the type of information you need to talk to us about and figure out. And you also need to, I think, target your approach to a select number of companies. If you can make 100 phone calls a day, that doesn't necessarily mean that you should. You know, the best calls that I get, the best emails that I get is those that say, I was just in your retail store, I had X, Y, and Z experience, my company potentially can help you do Y or do Z. Those are really a good starting point for conversations because they are relevant to my business. They talk a lot about your business, and we're already talking about value proposition. So it definitely does speak to doing your homework and navigating and being patient, but definitely being consistent and knowing that our companies here are looking for you and listening to what we say. If we tell you X, Y, and Z, then that potentially is good advice.
Charles, I want to ask you, from your perspective as a supplier, you know, the gentlemen have talked about sort of how to navigate their process, the basic overview. What have you found in your experience to be the best approach to making sure that you are meeting a need that one of the major companies has and that you're able to market your skill set?
Well, first and foremost, we're a little unique in as much as our approach is it's like going into a marriage, so to speak. So what we do is we take the time to understand that organization. We do our research on that respective organization. Through that research, there's opportunities to participate in organizations like the FCC, not just that, but the National Minority Supplier Development Council, and through their affiliate in Chicago. Also the National Urban League. So what happens is we have that opportunity to sit down and meet that respective organization through these organizations like FCC and so on. I mean, that's our starting point. And through that, we've had a long relationship, even with one of the organizations here, since 1999. And it's been a marriage, and it's continued to grow over the years. And so that's really our starting point. That's how we've been able to become more successful, and we continue to leverage those relationships, those long relationships, so to speak.
You know, David, we want to talk a little bit more later about the media brokerage initiative of MMTC, but I know you've been in this space for a long time in terms of just being an advocate on supplier diversity, and I wonder if you had any thoughts and advice for our audience and sort of your experience. What's the best way to navigate the process, particularly with the ISPs and the IT companies?
One first has to realize that for most of the products and services that suppliers may want to come to a large company with, someone is already providing them. Some incumbent that often has inside information that has the advantage of incumbency, in effect, is grandfathered into doing the work. And you're competing with them, and you may be able to offer a better service at a lower price, but their advantage of incumbency has great weight because the company is able to predict based on past performance what it's going to get, and whereas you're new. So what is the strategy to deal with that? Well, first, of course, get yourself credentialed, get into the system, develop relationships the way that you would develop relationships just with your customers, and be persistent about it. Second, keep in mind what is a new line of business for the company where there isn't anybody grandfathered, there isn't any incumbent. Is there some merger or acquisition where there's going to be a shuffling of the deck and there'll be some new entity that won't have anyone grandfathered or with any expectation of or any advantage in getting the work? Just be aware of that. Read the trades and keep your eye on those things. Is there some new geographic market that they could be going into? Some new demographic market that they might be trying to target or perhaps could target? Those are logical questions, of course, but you have to keep them in mind all the time. It's not one of those day-to-day things. It has to be kept in mind all the time. if you're going to break your way in.
David, and I think if I might follow up on Fernando's point about corporate road mapping, which I think is a great strategy and to share that information with us. I obviously understand that if it's a roadmap that your organization, particularly if you're a carrier, that's already in the public domain that we may not know about. If it's not in the public domain, I know you're not going to discuss it with us because you got your competitors sitting at the table with you, so we know you can't share that. But roadmaps that are in the public domain, major initiatives that are going on right now, could each one of the carriers and Comcast kind of talk about where we are there? And as well, Fernando, could you start, Hernando, with that discussion, and others can chime in as they please?
Sure, I'd be happy to do so. I think with us, it's a new day in that, as I mentioned before, the acquisition of Nokia. So you have to start looking at Microsoft slightly different than you have in the past. So now you have hardware, software. You also have a powerful network called Skype that we have in place. A whole platform for big data, which is the cloud, right? So you have a different environment. And just to play those types of elements forward, let's say we're looking at consumer offerings. And with a lot of our strategic partners here at this table on the network side, we're looking at offerings, looking into the future. I'll just give you one example, and then we'll get examples maybe from other people. Think about an environment in the not-too-distant future where your smartphone is connected to a variety of different sensors. And the sensors are speaking back to you, and they're relaying big data, right? So that type of a scenario would be able to do something which is to address a key issue. So right off the top of my head, the issue of children in car seats being left, unfortunately, by busy parents and perishing because it's too hot, right? Well, that can be addressed today if you have a roadmap to where the strategy is going, which is a sensor that identifies if it's too hot or too cold in close proximity to the car seat, right? That speaks to the smartphone, carried very elegantly by the networks that these colleagues represent, potentially on our software, right? Where you get an alert. It's, if you're stepping away from the car because the GPS signal knows where you are, and there's someone in the car because the sensor can identify the weight, etc. You tie it all together and you say it's a solution to saving lives. Now, if one of you in this room would want to develop that, I think it would be a viable business, right? Because there's a critical need. It brings us all, it engages us all. And we have to look at you and say, wow, that potentially could be a solution we can actually play out. So what I like to do with these types of meetings is take it to that level of something where it's challenging you to create something like that we can take back to our organizations.
Anyone else would like to weigh in on the corporate roadmaps?
Yeah, so within the wireless communication space, obviously our biggest spend is always around the network. And currently, all the carriers are deploying the next generation of network, which in this case is called LTE, a long-term evolution. And although this one is now currently coming to an end, there's always another one on the horizon. After LTE, it'll be small cell deployment. As we become more of a wireless community, we have to extend that network out, improve the quality of service, and to do that, we'll be hanging smaller devices off of commercial and municipal spaces. So that's the next big wave coming right after LTE is done. And then the other thing that I would have you consider is pretty much what Fernando was saying, but we talk about it in terms of machine to machine. So today, just about every appliance being built is having a chip put in it, and it is a wireless transmitter. And so now you have the ability through the wireless network to monitor and control remotely just about every electronic device that is out there. And so from a supplier perspective, think about how can I get on the front end of that opportunity, because we talk about, the billions of people on the planet who are connected from a data and voice perspective, but think of this exponentially as you think about the number of machines that will be connected. and small, and this of course gets to the premise of large numbers. A small return on a big number is still a big number, right? So you need to think about it in those terms as well. So I think there's tremendous opportunity in the telecom space as we go forward. And then finally, from a media standpoint, we think about media in terms of, broadcast and radio. But today, the applications that ride on handsets or tablets are really the driving force for the day. You can develop an app that you can sell around the world. 1 billion people can have access at $1 a pop, of which you might get 50 cents. 50 cents of a big number is still a big number. So it's getting in front of those. There's so much opportunity because we really have made this transition from being a wired society to a wireless society that is connected in so many ways.
I definitely will echo some of the statements. Clearly, the industry continues to evolve. There's a lot more overlap. Several years ago, we weren't an internet company. Several years after that, we weren't a phone company. What is it going to be 5 years from now? Comcast, NBC Universal are clearly very entrepreneurial companies. There are a good amount of activities right now, although the merger of NBC was several years ago, that still involve our two organizations coming closer together. Think about that. It was very exciting for me in the last couple of years to watch the Olympics, knowing that there's a component to that that's now part of my organization where it wasn't a few years ago. It carried over our network, a lot of the synergies that we've been talking about in the last couple of minutes. So keep in mind, and again, many of those things are relevant for the entire panel, for this entire conversation, so it isn't unique to one of our companies. I will say specifically beyond where the shifts are going in the industry in general, Comcast is making a significant investment in our organization right now. A lot of that is coming by way of construction. We're doing a significant amount of construction projects over the next 5 to 10 years on both coasts. We're doing stuff in Florida. There's going to be many people probably know, a new Comcast Innovation and Technology Center in Philadelphia. Unlike anything in that region, a significant contributor to the city and to the region, and I think to the entire Northeast. And we're doing a good amount on our West Coast properties, the Universal theme parks and pictures in West Coast by way of construction. So tactically, there's going to be several opportunities for business in that space as well. So think of it broadly, as we've been talking about from an industry perspective, long term, but also, of course, talk to us about the things that may be coming up in the next 6 to 12, 24 months.
At some point, I would suspect that you could make that information available to our conferees if they would call you or someone on your staff. I know you probably have not put the list together yet.
I mean, there are going to be different lists, of course, because the projects are going to be on different timelines and different locations and obviously have different specifics to them. I will be here all day, so I know I have several one-on-one meetings. I'm free to give out all of my contact information for anybody that does want to follow up, and there will be some information available specifically, I know, to the one that's in Philadelphia. We're going to have a broader outreach event just for that project because it's quite complex.
Now, could we hear from AT&T and Verizon on the roadmap? I know you guys got some pretty big highways, and we would like to know how to navigate some of those projects, okay?
Well, anything about similar to what my colleagues have stated, one of the things that I'm personally responsible for, in addition to a number of other things, is I oversee the supply diversity efforts for the real estate organization internationally. We have many initiatives underway right now. So what I would offer is you may see construction going on up front, but think about what it takes to make that happen and what's coming down the line. Similar to what was said earlier, one of the phrases I like to use is having the ability to see what's around the corner before you get to the corner. All right, so when you know there's construction coming up in your furniture company, jump in from day one, because there are going to be some opportunities. They're going to be looking to fill those offices with some more furniture. Find out what or how they're going to connect from that new building to some of the other existing locations. Find out don't only look at what's apparent and upfront, but look at the backbone. What's required to make all of that happen? For the deliveries, it's going to require some fleet and things like that. So that's what I would offer. Not only look at what's obvious and upfront, but look at what's required to make all of that happen as well.
AT&T is looking at the future in a different way. As you know, we were the oldest, right? So as we developed our network from being a wire-based network to a wireless-based network to an information-based network, AT&T now is in probably its biggest evolution of all time. We've embarked on a project called Project VIP, which is to lead our company from being a hardware-centric based company to a software-defined network. It's probably the biggest change in our history. It's how we're redefining ourselves and our network. We are no longer thinking of ourselves in terms of wires or servers or routers. We're looking at ourselves in terms of how a software-enabled network will allow everybody to communicate through to each other at all times. There's many opportunities and sub-opportunities within this. We're offering many small antennas, small cell service sites. We're involved in putting distributed systems, Wi-Fi systems for big venues like football games. We're getting into the wireline business where we're putting in 1 gigabit fiber in our 28-state footprint. But the whole idea is, as my friend Mr. Hernandez said, we are now in a point of evolution, and we're trying to get to where the puck's going to be, not where the puck is now. So as suppliers and as diverse suppliers, you have to look at us as how we're moving into the future. We're not the same AT&T.
Yeah, a couple comments. One of the things I've heard, and I think this is an obvious point for you all and probably an obvious point for our audience, and that is if you're not online, you're not doing business because all of your application procedures are all online. But I want to marry that to a point that David made, and he talked about the power and the impact of incumbency. I imagine the online application process can be pretty daunting, and there's going to be a lot of folks that want to do business with you. And so trying to identify what the opportunities are can also be probably a little bit daunting. It involves doing research and, again, having that access to information online. Can you all comment a bit about how new entrepreneurs, small businesses can compete when they're dealing with, as David says, I sound like I'm talking about Congress, but he's talking about the power of incumbency. How do you do they have to wait for folks to die in order to get into office? What are the solutions you can offer?
Okay, so let me start off, Thomas. So I actually run the procurement organization for Sprint, and supplier diversity is part of my larger organization. So I have a supplier diversity organization so that they can help diverse business understand how to do business in Sprint and to provide them opportunities. So for every large contract or RF request for proposal, request for whatever, I require that we have at least one diverse supplier included in the RF package. So the first way to overcome incumbency is to open it up to a competitive process. So number one, you've got to open this up and allow everyone to compete for it, and then ensure that you have diverse suppliers who are part of that process. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, and having run procurement for a number of years, I understand people like to do a business with people they know. So doing personal introductions, making sure that the end user gets to meet the business owner, understand them as an individual, understand them as a company. And I've got a great example. I knew I was coming here for this conference, and there is a company, a diverse company by the name of Perfect Output that provides document management for Sprint. And when I say document management, they started out as a supplier who provided output devices to Sprint, and they're agnostic as to who the manufacturer is. So when I say output devices, I'm talking about printers, faxes, that type of thing. They partnered with a large, and I'm not going to say who, manufacturer, and they wanted to get into the space of doing discovery for litigation. Big companies always being sued, right? And then discovery is a very, very daunting process of looking through documents, looking through electronics. They were trying to get an audience with the legal person who runs our litigation, who happens to be here. So when they called me, I said they were going to set up a meeting. I went, no. I'm coming here. You come with me. So Monday, I took them to meet her. And so Perfect Output, who is a diverse company, took this large manufacturer in, and they pitched their program to the litigator. That is how you break those barriers. It's through building those relationships and being an advocate on behalf of the diverse suppliers. When we walked out of the room, and I know the lady who's the litigator, I worked with her a number of years, she can be very difficult. And I know she was skeptical, but took this meeting because I asked. When I left, I understood that she was very impressed with the product that they offer, and that these guys will probably get the business. The business will not go to the large manufacturer. It will come through the diverse supplier. And Perfect Output, in another sense, is unique in that they started out doing devices, but then they moved into document management. And for most large companies, we don't even think about document management. It's kind of an afterthought. But it's extremely expensive. Every manufacturer of an output device has one goal. That's to put more devices in your business and charge you for more ink and printers and blah, blah, blah. So we partnered with Perfect Output and said, look, I don't want to manage this, and I don't want to buy more devices. I actually want to go the opposite direction. I want less paper, more digital. And so now they manage my suppliers who we buy from printing. So I pay them. I was probably paying them, we do over $10 million with them now. I was probably paying them $5 million just for the output devices. Then I ran 3 companies who manage print through them. And the only way Perfect Output gets paid is by reducing the cost of those suppliers. And then they get a percentage of it. So I've got them involved, and I'm running all that spend through them. So it's a win for them. It's a win for the corporation. It's a win for Perfect Output.
I agree completely with everything Gene had just said. You need to build those relationships. We have a lot of supply diversity folks that are out there at a number of events. Sometimes some business owners may think, I'm registered in your database, I haven't heard anything yet. Well, you have to do your due diligence as well as I do. You have to build your relationship with us as I have to build my relationship with you and also my internal counterparts, the buyers. I have to get to know their needs just like everyone else. So I can give you an example also where, and this isn't necessarily in my space, but it doesn't make a difference. I met a young lady who owns a law firm, and we worked together on a number of different things as part of one of the councils, got to know her very well, and it took 2 years for her to get her first contract with Verizon. Now, the feedback I get from my internal folks is that she's outstanding, her people are outstanding, they don't know why they hadn't engaged in something like this in the past. Now, my internal folks are starting to come to us now. Who do you have in this space? Because they're relying on us. They're trusting us to help them build supply diversity throughout Verizon. And that means at all levels. We have presidents, vice presidents, the CEO meets with my bosses on a regular basis. What are we doing? What can I do to help you improve these numbers? So it's about you being visible. Sometimes you may go to certain events and nothing happens. That's okay, because us that see you, we see you. And there's something that I know is top of mind awareness. I've met you a number of times, and all of a sudden, last minute, 24 hours I have before I can find somebody to fill that space. You know what? I remember seeing this person at these events. I have his business card or her business card. I'm going to get a hold of them, speak to them right away, and see if I can make something happen. And that does happen. So do your due diligence, be visible, be out there, and build that relationship, because that goes a long, long way.
Again, I agree with a lot of what my colleagues have said to this point. I think another interesting notion, I have 2 notions. One is the fact that I think as diverse firms, we have to be open to do things like partnering, joint ventures, strategic alliance, teaming, call it what you will, because it's only sometimes because of the ability to do that quickly that you'll get the scale and scope and the contacts in some cases that you'll need to be able to compete with the incumbent, or again to associate yourself with the incumbent, because that's what they're describing. I think Eugene made a great case around that, how you were able to add value. We've done a lot of that, especially when we did a lot of the construction of adding 1 billion square feet a million square feet to our campus a couple years ago, I strategically went out and looked for people I could do all sorts of things within the construction dimension of it and team them. Now what we're doing on the technology side is the same, and it works. We've been able to grow our program in my tenure from $600 million to $2 billion by doing these types of things and looking at everything. You can't do it alone, is my advice to you. If you are, then you have to be more radical, and we go back to the notion that a lot of us on the table have been talking about, which is you have to take on more risk and go way ahead of the curve so that you're able to meet that opportunity where it exists. To do that, I've created a different strategy. Our team now is engaged in doing things like hackathons, where you wouldn't typically find supplier diversity teams involved in that. We're doing it. We're doing a couple big initiatives between September and November, because I'll pose one funny, insightful little tidbit. And I was talking to some of my colleagues before this. Social media does not move if diverse people were removed from it. Think about it. You take out, people like Beyonce and Pitbull and whatnot out of Twitter. Twitter doesn't move, right? So you have a lot of power in these diverse markets. It's just how do you focus it and how do you channelize it? So as you move and you think forward of the types of things that a lot of the colleagues here are talking about, a lot of the value of the future is things like entertainment. Well, entertainment and reaching more diverse markets, both in the U.S. and globally, right? Like in our case, we're trying to reach the next 1 billion people that currently aren't using our software devices or anybody's, right? Huge global opportunity. Sometimes domestically you learn. I ran multicultural marketing at AT&T for 8 years, starting in 1990. So I learned how to service those people. And now I take it into what I'm doing now. So a lot of opportunity. We can talk about it later on, but those are two approaches.
I guess the first thing to realize, the easiest way to have a connection throughout AT&T, if you're a diverse business, is AT&T supplierdiversity.com. We have a group of professionals that will help to level and even the roadmap to get you into the parts of the company. Large, diverse businesses like ours are looking for diverse suppliers because we have so many different opportunities than what you'd expect. Second thing you have to be aware of, the world has changed. My colleagues here are talking about doing a lot of construction. AT&T is not looking at the future as being in bricks and mortar businesses anymore. The future for us is looking at a connected marketplace where people work virtually. It's a change in how you approach people and how you discuss people, how you deliver your message to people. It's not going to be face-to-face. It's going to be through wireless or some kind of connection. Many years ago, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg were talking, and they were having a Coke. And Spielberg was sucking through a straw. And George Lucas said to him, in the future, everything that you're going to do is going to come through you through a device like that straw. Well, he was wrong. The straw's gone away and everything's wireless now. So how we reach out, how we touch each other is going to change. You have to become aware of social networking, wireless communication, and how you reach into an organization. Our AT&T Supplier Diversity Organization will help you do that.
Just a couple of points, because I've covered, I think, most of the things that are relevant in this space. Definitely agree with David and Tom that incumbency is relevant. It's relevant for both majority-owned and diversity-owned companies. There are several diversity-owned companies that work at Comcast and NBCU that are leveraging that incumbency as well. So it does work both ways, but I definitely agree with that. One of the things that I'll add is that while the contracts may be longer, we may have those 3-year agreements, 4-year agreements, whatever, we're evaluating them more often than we used to because of the speed of the way that things are changing. So we're taking a look at the marketplace. Are they providing the right products or services? Are they keeping up or staying ahead of where we need to be? And a lot of the way that the contracts are structured is if they're not, we have the ability to make a change in that space. The keeping contact part, I can't emphasize enough that definitely I agree with the fact that you need to be visible. You need to be visible to the supply diversity teams. You're obviously coming to events like this, which is a great start. Talk to us digitally and on the phone and however means of communication you can get, but also, be in person to the extent that you can. That's a tremendous point made a little bit earlier. You do want to have that face-to-face contact. And ask the supply diversity teams, it's relevant whether or not it's a centralized or a decentralized organization. Should you be just funneled pretty much through supplier diversity or procurement, or does it make sense for you to talk to, the business that's in Texas, so that, you need to figure out how best to kind of approach that visibility. It's great to go to the NMSDC conference. It's great to come here to the FCC, but you also might want to go to the cable show. You also might want to go to the SETE show. So really figure that out. You want to go to both the diversity conferences, but also maybe the conferences that are in your industry space, because you may get some exposure to different parts of the company or different individuals of the company that you wouldn't necessarily get a chance to see.
Charles.
The point from a diverse supplier standpoint is you talk about overcoming these some of the larger opportunities, incumbency, what have you. We took steps early on. It's about relationships, and we took steps to engage within large organization. One of the organizations is the Sprint Corporation, and through the Sprint Corporation, we became one of their indirect partners from a sales standpoint. And so through that, we had an opportunity to be engaged. And so it's not just, the paperwork associated with supplier diversity, but we were able to become engaged even from a sales standpoint, working with the direct teams locally, regionally, and even nationally. And so through that, we were able to identify opportunities. So like, for example, and even kind of echo what you were speaking about earlier in terms of the Internet of Things, we were able to identify opportunities within machine-to-machine, because there's more devices, more machines out there than people. And so that's huge in the telecom space for opportunity. So we were able to participate with the Chicago Transit Authority. This is back in 2007 in terms of those the buses and trains. Along with that, we were able to identify opportunities within K-12, which FCC impacts K-12 in terms of E-rate program. There's more children out here than those who actually have smartphones and what have you. So we're able to engage in that respective opportunity in terms of partnering with Sprint, subsidized laptops for all children, and then leveraging the E-rate program on the back end and for deployment. And so, at the end of the day, we're able to automate not just the workforce, but automate K-12 and close that gap between the have and have-nots. So, again, really my main point is it's about relationship. You have to get engaged, touch. You have to, and that's the only way you'll be able to overcome those ostensible issues.
Something else? So in addition to that, first of all, I take my hat off to entrepreneurs. Through my work, I've got to know many, and it's a very daunting task. And as one reminded me, every week I have to make payroll, right? Gene, you don't make payroll, you get a check every week. But I said that to say this. So one of the other important things that we do is we write into our contracts with our large suppliers a supplier diversity requirement. Second tier is important. If I can't do business with you directly as a small or diverse business, I want to introduce you to one of the companies that I do business with, and I want them to know that they're doing business with small business is as important to me as well as Sprint Corporation. So we write that at a minimum commitment into every one of the contracts. If a diverse supplier comes to me and timing is everything. What you're selling I may not need or want at this moment. But I can say, hey, I know this company, they're doing XYZ. So we extend that outreach to not just Sprint, but to our suppliers as well, to make sure that they understand it's an important initiative for Sprint. We value people who do business in the same way that we do business, and then we can help you in identifying businesses that would be viable that we support and work with as well.
Hey, David, I want to give you an opportunity to jump in here. We have a number of folks here with us who are media owners, and I know that MMTC, as I mentioned earlier, has a media brokerage practice. So if you could tell us a little bit more about that practice, and perhaps I know that MMTC currently owns a number of media properties, and what advice you would have for folks who are interested in venturing out in that area.
Sure. In 1997, I gave a speech at the NAB decrying the fact that there were 60 media brokerages, none was minority owned, and no wonder there was this old boy network such that minority broadcasters tended to hear of stations that were available for sale only when the deal had been already announced. I got called into the office of one of my mentors, I'll call him, he used to work here, Dick Wiley, who said, as he often does, why don't you look at this from a positive standpoint? Why don't you start a brokerage? I said, but I've sued everybody in the business. That's okay, they know you. Where am I going to get clients? Well, within a month we were set up. Our first clients were Infinity, which is now CBS Radio, and Clear Channel. Over the years, we've sold about $1.9 billion worth of stations or participated in those transactions. About a third of deals to minorities in that time we participated in or did. It's made a big difference, but obviously not enough of a difference given the fact that we're still mired in very low numbers, both in terms of the number of stations owned and in terms of asset value. There are 60 brokerages. It's a little secretive business. It's all first names. It's all handshakes. It's like the diamond dealers because we all trust each other. We are still the only minority-owned brokerage. The brokerage is managed by Suzanne Gowerty, who is in the back of the room, and who'll be taking appointments. Right now, we represent mostly buyers, which is sort of unusual because, of course, that's our mission. We're a nonprofit, and we want to help people get into the business so we can invest time in helping buyers prepare themselves. On the seller side, right now we have 4 radio stations and 9 television stations that we're trying to help clients sell. So that's sort of a quick overview. I'll be around afterwards, as will Suzanne, for all afternoon. If anyone wants to learn about how you get into the television and radio station business, it is still a very viable business, notwithstanding what you read in some of the trades. And we also broker on the Spectrum side as well. We did the largest minority-owned Spectrum deal 2 years ago, which was grain management for $287 billion. Our client was Verizon Wireless.
So now I've got a few questions from our audience, and I'll start out with this one from Jim Winston, NABOB. Jim asks, does your office get involved in placement of advertising? The ad agencies that place advertising for your companies don't seek to find diverse suppliers. See if anybody has any comment on Jim's question.
So I can answer that because I think there's some truth in that statement, and that is that number one, within the advertising space, it's a very incestuous set of relationships, and when you start peeling back the onion, they're all the same company. And then on the media buy side, what we're buying and placing, we've gotten more diverse companies in the advertising, the creative side. But on the brokerage side, where you're buying that space, not so much. So there is a tremendous opportunity. Keep in mind that, these guys control a lot of that space, and, as a corporation, we're trying to leverage that. So I don't know that I've got an answer as to how to break that control, but I do think it represents an opportunity.
Comcast and NBCU, I'm part of the organization, the strategic sourcing or the procurement organization up to the chief procurement officer. We indirectly are involved in that. It doesn't fall within the traditional procurement scope. It is under the marketing or CMO or somebody in that space, both for the cable division and NBC Universal. What I will say is that while there are the same challenges that we'll face internally that I think everybody is aware of. There is, I think, a significant amount of visibility on it, and we have dedicated conversations with the chief marketing officers about where we're placing ads, how we're placing ads, minority-owned and targeted media outlets. One of the reasons for that, above and beyond just a general commitment in the organization, is the creation of our External Joint Diversity Council, which was done around the time when we did the NBCU deal going back to 2011. It's about 42 members, external members, pretty high level, that come in twice a year, meet all the way up with our CEO, and we have conversations around best practices. What are we doing in the area of workforce? What does our executive leadership team look like from a diversity perspective? Supplier is obviously our programming activities. We've done a lot in the minority-owned programming space in the last several years, and also our community investment foundation and philanthropic activities. And the reason I bring up the Joint Diversity Council is that we'll bring in executives from within the business and outside at times to specifically talk about topics. How do we get more inclusion in the legal space and other professional services? Things like access to capital and around the marketing space. So it's something that is actively discussed internally. It is something that is monitored. It is something that is tracked. And it is something that we are working to kind of get more inclusion and more impact in that space. A lot of these activities, we've done a significant job in the last several years to be way more transparent about the things that we're doing in the diversity and inclusion space. We just recently, in the last 2 months, for the first time, put out a pretty comprehensive 3-year report on our diversity and inclusion efforts. It's called Seeing the Big Picture. It's available on our website. I have just a few copies here with me. We're trying to be pretty green, but you can download the entire thing on our website. It's got videos, and it really does speak to a lot of our efforts over the last 3 years in what we're doing around diversity and inclusion. I welcome you to visit our website and check it out. I can definitely give you information about how to obtain copies of that after the presentation.
I think Gene earlier made the point about how his company has been able to look at large requirements and suggest to major contractors to utilize minority businesses. Do we apply that same strategy to the media and ad business? I was just curious. Would that be a way to get more minority and diverse firms engaged?
Yeah, one of the things I would say in that, and as I thought about this, so you may be chasing a dying industry here. The largest ad company in the world today is who? Google. So, right now, advertising is being driven to handsets and to you in particular. So chasing media placements in TV, radio, and television, I don't think it's going to continue, because I know exactly, Google knows exactly where you are every day, what you buy, what you look at, and they're using that data to target marketing specifically to you. So instead of chasing the old media placements that have traditionally driven a lot of dollars to it, think about the new world, which is very much targeted to you as an individual, and how do I get a piece of that action, because that's where the money's going. It's not going to continue. That industry is fading. It's slowly fading, but it's going to be replaced. And so instead of thinking about what the past was, look to where the future is going.
I'd like to add on that, and Gene's absolutely right. I just came back from meetings in New York where I met with the Chief Procurement Officer at Interpublic, Alicia Rojas. I spent a lot of time with him on this issue. I also had another meeting with a company called Thin Air, which Verizon and Sprint are looking at. And they have the solution all the way from when you're looking at your TV set and you take an action, it follows you all the way through to the purchase in the store. So it's even one step better than the Google model. And by the way, Google's on their board. I'm very interested. That's why we're there as well. So I think you're absolutely right. And this is one of those insights where, again, where the puck is going, not where it's been. So I think he's doing you a tremendous service.
Well, it's good to know where not to go. That's good. Thank you, guys. Yeah.
I've got a question from the audience. It says, the old tuition and fees model universities use to do business is long since ineffective. Just as students and parents are our customers, you and other companies are our end users. How do colleges and universities do a better job of being your talent suppliers?
I wonder who asked that question in the audience.
No, I've been asking folks to let us know. It's a great question.
Must be a
but
university in
that
the
was an
house, I
anonymous
guess.
question that came up.
Okay.
Does anybody want to handle that one?
You know, obviously, science, technology, engineering, and math are the hot topics today, right? As we talk about digital age and wireless communications, and that's obviously the one to go. But I can't answer that question. What I can tell you is I'm appalled at how much it costs to go to college. I'm appalled at my nieces and nephews who are graduating and they're $50,000 in debt. I'm going, oh my God, are you kidding me?
I got 3 going.
Right, so I don't have an answer. I'm frightened as well. I think the cost and the value of education right now compared to the starting salaries are way, way, way out of line, and it's killing our kids. I mean, they're coming out there in debt up to their heads, and it'll take years for them to swim out of this debt, and something's got to be done here. It's ridiculous.
Are you all finding that we're still? Oh, go ahead, David. Okay.
It's not really the responsibilities of each of the nation's colleges to market themselves to 10, 20 large companies. It's the responsibility of those companies to do outreach so that they deliver value to their shareholders by having the most diverse and competitive workforces that they can get. Now, not only is that a business justified requirement, it's a moral requirement. How can you have a nation where people of color are 34% of the population, almost 0% of the owners of some of these assets, 1 or 2% of the workforces of some of the large edge companies, none of them represented here, but you know who some of them are because in the last month, and I want to give great credit to Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr. and Rainbow Push for having the moral force and persuasiveness to get them to release their data, and the data is horrible. Now, a lot of their workers, frankly, and this is perfectly fine, are H-1B workers. They have to certify to get an H-1B person here that they've tried to recruit domestically for that talent and competence and haven't been able to do so, yet a lot of these companies never show up at an HBCU to recruit. I think that's almost immigration fraud. Yes, I said it. And I said before, and before we start suing folk, it would behoove them to start putting some of these universities that have engineering schools, that have communication schools, that have wonderful talent that never gets an opportunity to place themselves before the hiring directors and the training people in these companies, and stop flying over the nation, start dropping parachutes down, visiting these universities, and getting their people into the system. Someone want to say amen? Thank you.
To follow you, David. So I'll be very careful. It's more of my personal thoughts on it. It's I definitely think there's a shared responsibility at Comcast NBCU. We've got a tremendous internship program. We have a lot of rotational programs that are designed for recent college grads, the first 1, 2, 3 years, the kind of entry-level positions, if you would, to make sure that they land well and that they're able to kind of thrive in our environment. So there's those components as well. In our internship, just like the rest of our workforce, there are diversity and inclusion kind of commitments and goals and a very progressive kind of eye and effort to make sure that we're being inclusive with the interns that we come in. But I think part of the question was what the universities can be doing to better prepare their students, and it gives me a good opportunity to plug my alma mater, Drexel University in Philly, of course, a very close partner to Comcast. They've had a co-op program and has worked off of quarters for a very long time. I didn't necessarily appreciate it at the time, but it definitely helped to position me when I was entering the workforce. And they now most recently have opened one of the few colleges of entrepreneurship in the country, which I think speaks to them really putting dedicated activities and structure around building and promoting the thought around entrepreneurship, being business owners. How do you access capital? How do you pull your business plans together at the undergraduate level? So I think doing things like that takes it more from a high level, I just want to study marketing, get my bachelor's, to how do I immediately apply that in this new world where you can start a company for less money and potentially even start business before you exit college. That kind of thought process is very helpful for what our organizations need.
Here's a question from the audience, and I'll paraphrase a bit. It's directed at Comcast, but I think it's applicable to all of our companies. But it says that Comcast is becoming the nation's leader in TV, cable, and telecom, and yet the nation is becoming more diverse, as David's point is, the nation is becoming more diverse. How does the leadership of Comcast reflect the diversity, that diversity in its procurement efforts? I believe that's the way that the question is phrased. But I think that's a question that really can be posed to all of you.
Absolutely. It's a tremendous question. We are clearly a business-to-consumer company. We definitely strive to make sure that we represent and provide value for our customers and our potential customers, both on the residential and the commercial side. There is tremendous amount of inclusion in our workforce and in our supplier diversity. Is there enough, or is there what I think the number should be? The answer is no. Unfortunately, I still have a job. I don't want to be in a position where we need to have a dedicated supplier diversity staff. I want it to be at a point where these kind of things just kind of organically are at a point where we are at that balance point, if it exists, which is the reason why we have, individuals that are doing this work. The reason why we have the Joint Diversity Council. It's the reason why we're sitting on panels, talking to industry groups, getting information about what other organizations are doing that we may not be doing, so we can bring in the best and brightest workforce, which we know is a diverse workforce. Why we can bring in the best and brightest suppliers, which we also know are diverse. Not where it was a couple years ago, what it's going to look like in the future. So there's a tremendous amount of activity, again, which I welcome you to speak to me directly about it. We have a couple other representatives from our organization here. There's a tremendous amount of information on our website, but I think there's still a good amount of work to be done. What I will say is that I haven't experienced in the almost 7 years that I've been there any topics around this space that we're not actively talking about internally and trying to figure out ways that we can do better.
We have just a few minutes before noon. I wanted to give you all an opportunity to give some final comments and just sort of in wrapping it up. If you could, final comments on sort of do's and don'ts. We talked about do's, but also, what kind of practices that suppliers have that really are going to lead to their inevitable failure in this process. So if you can give some advice about, here are the things you absolutely should do, and here are the things that we know and we've seen will lead you out of the process. If you could share your thoughts on that, then that's everyone.
A couple of quick things. Don't overpromise and underdeliver. That's always... that's a quick walk out the door, all right? And it may be your last opportunity that way. Another thing is, one of the things you do want to do is focus on your strengths. If you own a business that's capable of janitorial, security, and also we do logistics and some staffing, what are the 2 or 3 things that you're very, very strong in, and focus on that. And know when you're approaching one of the companies on the panel already, any corporation, as a matter of fact, know what they're looking for. You really don't want to be in a position to walk into the room with your future partners not knowing where their business is going and how you can help them get there quickly and effectively. And it's always okay to say no. There's power in saying no sometimes. No, I can't do this right now, but I tell you what, I'm working on this, and I'll be back. That's great. That's great. I'll leave it at that right now.
I think from my point of view, again, a lot of it is being strategic, and a lot of the things we've talked about this morning. The other part is differentiating yourself. And I'll tell you a simple way to go that not a lot of people do. You don't see too many people actually taking advantage of the fact that you can create a very small, simple video and use that as your calling card. One of the projects that we're working with doing this year, we've created kind of a little tagline, and we're doing it in the women's market first with WeBank and a couple of other organizations, and then we're going to roll it out. And in the women's space, it's called Women in Their Own Words. You get, a minute or 2. It's your pitch. It's a little format, for Skype. and its ability to create a calling card into the organization. That breaks through the clutter. That's something, it's already in digital content. I can send it to my colleagues on their powerful networks. I can send it left and I can send it right. So I think, you always have to be looking at saying, how do I differentiate myself? And being able to be prepared, obviously, as we've talked about all morning long. But it's those little things sometimes. It's not, rocket science. It's just breaking through the clutter.
I think branding is critical. All of the organizations here have spent a tremendous amount of time and resources working on our brand. Anybody that's in a supplier diversity role, I can't impress upon you the amount of pitches that we receive, which is great. That's what it's designed for. But we can pretty quickly figure out if there's going to be a match, if there's not going to be a match. We've got that kind of finely tuned brain just because of the volume that we deal with. Once you get our attention, we're going to do homework on you the same way you should have done homework on us. It's not funny, but I received a fax in 2014. Somebody literally faxed me some information about their organization. Could have been a great company, but that already threw me into another place where what's going on? I'm going to look for your website. What does your web presence look like? It doesn't cost a significant amount of money to have an appropriate web presence. And if you're approaching any of our organizations looking for millions of dollars of business and we can't find you, that potentially is going to be an issue. So we want to know that you're able to represent us. We're looking for suppliers to be extensions of us. So just make sure that presentation that you give us is comprehensive and as it should be.
I think basic business, the main thing you have to do when you want to do business with AT&T, or I think any of our peers here, is to listen very carefully. When you're talking to people, when you're talking to this set, find out who the individual is, what their interests are, find out what they're doing and what they can offer you. You're going to find out many, many times you're talking to an individual that is not who you need to be talking to, right? It's very, very hard to get through massive bureaucracies, either here in the federal government or with AT&T or Verizon or with Microsoft. And right now, we all do business with each other, too. It's not easy for us, right? You've got to listen. You've got to find out who you're talking to and why you're talking to them, which brings to the point that you made so well. You also have to know who you are. You have to be branded. You have to be logoed. You have to be clear. You have to be clear on what you're offering. That will get you through the system faster than anything.
I'm going to stick my neck out one more time. It's very appropriate and significant that this gathering today is being held at the Federal Communications Commission. The FCC stands very high on the civil rights mountaintop. It has a responsibility that no one company can really have of looking out for the interests of consumers. And it knows very well through years and years of experience that when you have small, socially and economically disadvantaged, minority, women-owned businesses having an opportunity, that's beneficial to society. It's morally right. It's efficient. And it builds economic growth nationwide. So the FCC really has two ways that it can speak to those whose DNA hasn't yet acquired the trajectory that these companies that are here today have shown. It's in your DNA to do this. But there are many who aren't here, who frankly have enormous opportunities available to them, but disadvantaged suppliers don't take advantage of them, and because they don't have programs, they don't think this through, they don't see it as a high priority. It's the FCC's responsibility, Congress has granted them this, to have these companies start to think about this, and there are two tools that they have. One is that for cable companies, ever since 1993, and Jim Winston and I were there and involved in this, cable companies have to submit annual procurement reports to the Commission as part of their equal employment compliance responsibility, and the Commission looks at those things, and they have to think about them just to write them down. There's been a petition pending for 10 years from 57 national organizations asking that requirement be extended to all FCC-regulated businesses. The Commission should grant that. And second, when the Commission reviews mergers and acquisitions, you have to file a public interest statement. There are no guidelines for what goes in it, but a really far-sighted public interest statement ought to be able to make the case that this company, either as a matter of current best practices or future best practices after the combination is done, is going to make this a matter of highest priority. Some statements do a very good job at this, some don't, but that's really how members of the public can evaluate the bona fides and seriousness of companies and consider, should we be doing business with them, should we be buying their goods and services, do they deserve on the merits this special benefit that the Commission grants them.
Give 5 points associated with do's and don'ts. I'll start off with the first, which is a don't. Do not sleep on Tier 2 opportunities, because a Tier 2 opportunity will open the door for Tier 1 opportunities. That's where you can acquire past performance. Okay. A do, understand your business inside and out. So you take your time. Most people, when you talk about starting their business, they're like, okay, why should I create a business plan? That business plan is your roadmap to creating your business and really understanding your business inside out. And it's a dynamic document that will continue to evolve. And that's how we've been able to survive and diversify our business, not just service offerings, but who we're doing business with. Also, just be prepared. At all times, and so through that, you bring your A game. Lastly, you just persevere. Given all the challenges over the years as a small business, what have you, that is what's kept us in the game, is perseverance.
Well, it's noon, and first I'd like to close by thanking our panelists and thanking for our time and giving them a big round of applause for the time that they put in. A couple of announcements. I apologize I couldn't get to all the questions, but we do have a whole afternoon. There were great questions, and our panelists are here. They're going to be continuing through the afternoon. So if I didn't get to your question and you want to pose it, please do so. Again, I think Karen may still be in the room. Karen Beverly may still be in the room. If you haven't had a chance to check in with Karen, she's over there so that you get your packets. You may want to do that. We're going to reconvene here at 1:30. I think everybody should be back by 1:20 so we can check in if you've got meetings. Couple lunch options. Again, we don't have a lot around here. There's Capital Cafe in the building, which is nice. Security has changed, so you need escorts now. So our staff is going to be orchestrating that. There are a couple sandwich shops right around the corner, and if you're really doing well financially, you can go to the Mandarin Oriental. They have lunch there. I think we've got surveys too. If you get an opportunity to do, please fill those out. I think those are at the front desk off to my left, maybe your right. And also, while you're here, I guess if anyone's interested, the Wi-Fi connection here, the Wi-Fi code for anyone who's interested is FCC 31415. FCC 31415. So with that, we'll conclude this morning, and then we'll see most of you back here in about an hour. Again, be back if you've got meetings. Be back by 1:20 so we can pull everybody together. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.